Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commit to Life, a collaboration with Student Life and VMAS to discuss suicide awareness in general and in military. And I am so excited to be working with VMAS and Courtney Goodo, who will be, I'm handing this off to. She's the expert in this area. And so welcome, Courtney.
Hi, Jana. Thank you so much for having me. I understand that it is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, the month of September. So we did not want to miss an opportunity to try to reach our special populations to let them know that they matter and offer them some resources. So today we have two very qualified individuals. We have a Miss Tamara Petty and a Miss Chandra Arsenault Harrison. Ms. Petty works for Houston Community College in the Office of Counseling and Ability Services, and Ms. Chandra Arsenault Harrison works for the Department of Veterans Affairs. She is a counselor for Chapter 31 VR&E, Veteran Readiness and Employment. And I will introduce these two ladies respectively and allow them to offer information about themselves. So let's start with Ms. Tamara. Can you please tell us about yourself?
Hi, yes, my name is Tamara Petty. I am one of the counselors and I'm housed at the Spring Branch campus. I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor. I have been in the field for over 25, 30 years. I have worked in various locations as far as CPS, probation officer, and at the Harris Center for several years. I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
You sound very qualified and experienced. All right, Miss Chandra.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chandra Arsenault Harrison. I have been a voc rehab counselor for 23 years. First started off with the state, which was Texas Veteran Rehab, and then changed over to Veteran Rehab Services. So I've been with the VA for, count this with my youngest son, so he's 20, so 19 years with the VA. And so I've been working with veterans also with the state and crossing over to now. And now I am a VSOC on campus with Houston Community College.
All right, and I will introduce myself. My name is Courtney Goodo. I am the VA coordinator here for Houston Community College, and I have been working in this department for 8 years now. And so we service veterans, their families, and also active duty service members. I am married to a veteran, and also so is Chandra. So we kind of have hands-on experience of what it's like with those special populations, and we're always looking for ways to better service them and offer them any type of support they may need. So like I said previously, it is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, and suicide is not a fun topic to speak about. It doesn't generate a lot of interest. Nobody's really willing to talk about it because it is a bit dark. However, the message that we want to get out to our students here at HCC, whether you are a first-time college student, you are a veteran, active duty, or you're a dependent of a veteran, we want you to understand that your life matters and the world is a better place with you in it. So we are going to start by just asking our mental health professionals a few questions and just have a discussion. It's a very open-ended, easy, laid-back discussion just to make sure that we're all equipped with the information we need to possibly, prevent a suicide and save a life. It is 100% preventable. So we will start off with maybe some statistics. If you have any statistics to offer, Tamara or Chandra, regarding college students or people in general or military when it comes to suicide statistics.
Well, I was able to do a little research before we started today, and I did find out that approximately 24,000 college students attempt suicide each year. So that's a pretty high number considering, the population. So that is what's going on currently as far as college students. So that would probably be an average of the age of 18 to 24. It is the leading cause of death for college students.
Yeah, so that 18 to 24 demographic is a very pivotal time in a young person's life. And like you said, unfortunately, suicide is the leading cause of death amongst that demographic. And like I said before, it's 100% preventable. What are some reasons you might think that it's the number one cause of death amongst that particular age group and amongst college students? What could be some of the stress factors in their life that might lead them to making this fateful decision?
Well, it's a time of change. You're leaving from maybe parental guidance to being more on your own. So just the idea of facing life at that point could cause some stress. Um, Dealing with social media these days is a lot because there's a lot going on and we tend to want likes. And when things don't happen the way we perceive them, it could cause a lot of stress within that age group.
Right. I have heard so many times that the younger generations are what they call microwave generations. They're used to instant gratification.
Hmm.
And social media is one of the driving forces behind that. Everything is at your disposal, at your fingertips. The communication globally is instant. And so, with so much information at your disposal, it definitely has its downside. And that's such a pivotal age amongst our young Americans. And so, I found some statistics that kind of saddened me that according to I believe it was the National Institute for Mental Health, veterans are at a high risk of suicide, in addition to people who live in rural areas or work in certain industries like mining and construction. Compared to other racial and ethnic groups, suicide rates are highest among non Hispanic, Native American, and Alaska Native people, followed by white people. And it's so hard to hear when I have such personal ties to the veteran community. I am a veteran spouse and I work with veterans day in and day out for my entire career since graduating college. And to see that they're at one of the highest groups of people who take their own life is very saddening. But I want to use that sadness as fuel to provide better services. So that's something I believe we all can do. To my colleagues who are on this call listening, we are in a position to make someone's day a little bit brighter. And so I know this is a heavy and touchy topic, but if we could use this as motivation to just go a little bit harder, go more above and beyond, especially for our special population. And we have so many veterans who work in our office. And so we just think of them and their families. Like it can affect almost anyone and it affects them disproportionately. So we just want to make sure that we're offering the best. It starts with customer service. I think the best customer service possible. And if you see somebody struggling, I think it's important if you can't give them the help or the resources that they need, don't let the buck stop there. Try to connect them with an individual who can, just to have one less stressor in their very stressful lives. So it's going to bring us to our next topic. And anyone can answer this question. What are some warning signs that could possibly indicate that a person is in crisis?
So, Courtney, I
Mhm.
want to go back to the statistics for the veterans that
Oh, yes.
I found for us. So in 2021, that's when the last post that went out that they have on suicide rates for veterans was put out for us, and it said there were 46,412 suicides among U.S. adults, and that included 6,392 suicides among veterans. And when it was broken down, it was broken down that it was higher for veterans in 2001 to 2021 for that same age group that we were talking about earlier, for 18 to 54 years of age for women. And then for men, it was the suicide rates were lower for veterans for 75 years and older during that same period. What we have researched for the veterans, that the problems that they encounter with that is coming home from the military. Military life is totally different than civilian life. So when they left home, when they were actually home, it was the normal everyday life that we all go through: family, going to school, going to work, friends, thinking, hanging out and stuff like that, just thinking about what you're going to do. But when you go into the military, it is a different form of training. It's a different mindset. It's a different lifestyle. And depending on how many tours you do, how long you're in there, the actual branch that you're in, all of that is in your memory, in your brain. And when you come out, you still think that way. But the civilian lifestyle is totally different. So all of that compounded with what you had previously, then what you learned in the military, and then you're getting out and you're like being reintroduced to people all over again. And that is very stressful. And depending on if your family depends on you or depended on you, or who you missed during that time that you were away, and people understanding you, and not to even mention if you were hurt in the military, it could be physically, mentally, intellectually as well. All those things are going on with you, and then you come out and you're trying to find resources, try and help, trying to figure out who you can talk to that can help you understand what's going on with you, because you no longer have that military everyday life of someone telling you what to do, when to do, how to do it, because now you have to kind of figure it out yourself. And so those are stressors that cause a crisis to a person, and which may lead to suicide and harming yourself or harming others and things like that. So I just wanted to add that before you moved on.
Thank you. And that's really great insight. I think the transition from active duty or military life to civilian life is not an easy transition. And if you personally know a veteran, I happen to live with one, you can see that sometimes that military thinking never goes away. And I feel like our service members look through life through a completely different lens. And it could be the smallest things that maybe trigger thoughts or trigger behaviors that's unsuspecting to the average human eye, where a veteran or an active duty service member is what I call having a moment, where they're kind of caught in between these two worlds of active duty and civilian life and not knowing how to operate in them. And like I said, it could be something so simple as driving on the road. I know a lot of veterans that have seen combat are very hypersensitive to driving, especially if you've been overseas on deployments and you're very cautious about what you drive over in the road. Could it be an IED? Or is it just a piece of rubber from a blowout of an 18-wheeler? So it's like those very minute details are going through their minds. And sometimes we just need to step back and give them space to have those feelings and let them know their feelings are valid, but don't rush them through trying to figure out that process. But I believe that's a very pivotal point with the transition. And all of my veterans that are possibly listening to this, or maybe my colleagues that are listening that work with veterans every day, I would challenge you to, talk to your veterans a little bit more and hear their stories. If they want to talk, them be able to talk to you, give them a listening ear, because we never know just by listening to someone how that can help them. So thank you for that, Chandra. It's going to segue me back into my second question, which was, what are some warning signs that could indicate that a person is in crisis? Tamara, Chandra, anything you guys could offer that could be warning signs?
I would say we always want to pay attention to an outcry. If someone makes the statement that I want to kill myself or I just want to die, we want to take that a little seriously by asking more questions. Some people use that in general conversation, but we want to be able to ask the question, are you going to kill yourself? Do you have a plan? We want to be able to put those things in place when someone makes that outcry. If we notice someone changing in behavior, if they are now sleeping more, if someone is saying goodbye, if someone is planning a will that wouldn't necessarily be a common thing for that age group or that person, you might want to start asking more questions. As a person that may be hearing these things or noticing things, we need to start addressing them, not being afraid to ask the question. It's okay to ask someone, are you going to kill yourself? We want to get comfortable saying that, because if we start saying things like, are you going to hurt yourself? That might not be good enough, because that person is like, no, I'm not going to hurt myself. I plan on dying. There will be no more hurting. So we want to desensitize the statements and be able to ask those questions when we're noticing things. I don't want to give a direct of this is what you see, because every situation is different and suicide looks different in different people, because now we have social media. Some people put a plan out on social media. If you notice some changes in that, there's a lot of things that we can look for, but we just, as the bystanders and civilians, we need to be able to address it.
Gotcha. That's very good insight. Chandra, do you have anything?
Yes, and everything that she said, I totally agree with. We looked at that in the VA as well. And the VA has also implemented for all the employees what's called a SAVE training, and SAVE is the acronym for S is for signs, which means signs of suicidal thinking should be recognized. So you should be listening. Ask the most important questions of all. Are you thinking of killing yourself? Validate the veteran's experience, listen carefully, be supported, ask them what they're thinking and feeling, and encourage and expedite, which encourage the treatment and expedite getting help, which basically help them connect to who they need to connect to if something is going on there.
Wow. So something you both said really struck a chord with me. I attended a mental health training, I believe in 2022. And my biggest takeaway was you have to be very blunt, very almost cut and dry. I think as Americans, we're so conditioned to beating around the bush or walking on eggshells and not wanting to talk about darker, depressive things. So we tend to sugarcoat stuff when we're talking. But when it comes to suicide, it's an extremely serious and time sensitive subject. There's literally no time for sugarcoating, there's no time to waste. And what both of you ladies said is absolutely true. Ask the person. I know it might be uncomfortable to talk about death so matter of factly, but if you feel like a person is in crisis and has either suicidal thoughts or ideations, the most important question you can ask them, do you want to kill yourself? Do you have a plan to kill yourself? And it might be cringe to think of it that way, but you really want to assess their mental state right in that moment. That way you can connect them with the resources. And I really like that acronym the VA implements with, was it SAVE or SAFE? That last part, it's like expedite this. And it's connecting those individuals to the mental health professionals that they need in that moment. And so if you or a loved one or someone you know is contemplating suicide, then you want to direct them to the National Suicide Hotline, which is 988. When we have small kids and we're teaching them safety and whatnot, we teach them the 911 number because it's easy to memorize, and that's who you call in a crisis when you are physically unwell or physically unsafe. But if you are in a mental crisis or an emotional crisis of some sort, and you are thinking of taking your own life, or you're with someone who's thinking of taking their own life, please don't hesitate to dial 988. There are licensed mental health professionals on the other side of that phone, ready and willing to listen to you, to validate your feelings, and get you the help that you need. All right, so how do you know if someone's suicidal? You flat out, you ask them. And the second step is asking them if they have made a plan, just so you know, as the first intercessor in the situation, how serious they are in this situation. So, ladies, how do we destigmatize the conversation surrounding suicide? How do we get that to be non-taboo, just a normal conversation like we talk about, I don't know, diabetes. Like we have no shame when it comes to speaking of diabetes and how to prevent it. How can we bring suicide into the conversation and it be shame-free, no judgment, and a part of the American conversation?
I think awareness is very important. I think on the college campus, I know we just finished a week of suicide information. We did tables where students were able to get literature, get information. We also at the college, we teach a QPR, which is question, persuade, and respond training that we offer twice a year during each semester that anyone can attend. And I think the important part is just bringing the awareness and stigmatizing the idea of it. We need to talk about it so people are aware and not feel so alone or ashamed.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Chandra?
Yes, I agree with her again. But also, mental health is very popular now among kids, teenagers, college students, adults, and things like that. So everybody is basically talking about mental health, and suicide falls under that because if you're not okay, then other things can lead to that. And so, as a counselor with the VA, we are also informed to basically check on everybody. You're supposed to ask everybody that you greet and meet, how are you doing today? Just to start a conversation. If you see somebody walking by that's wondering, they may look sad or may just look off, just check on basically everybody. And then that starts a conversation, or even amongst your peers and friends or in meetings and things like that. When you're meeting new people, you can just check on them to say how are things going. um have you heard about this topic or something like that. Nothing political, but just to feel their vibes, feel the room, and just talk about positive things. Positivity goes a long way. um you just basically need to have the conversation, and then that way it sets the tone of what's going on, because somebody could be having a really bad day and you can just say, well, hey, how's it going, how you doing, and that can just enlighten them that somebody spoke to them, that you changed their thought process of what they were thinking of. And actually what's really interesting that I saw on the news yesterday, Bon Jovi, I don't know if anybody else saw that. He was getting ready to do a video, and on the bridge there was someone there that looked like they were in need of help, and he just walked over there and talked with the person, and they came off of the other side of the bridge. And so that was just, him going over just to speak. So if you're just paying attention, I know everybody has their own problems and own issues, but sometimes, you just need to just be aware and look around and just see, maybe somebody just needs you to say hi. maybe somebody needs a hug, a handshake, or just something like that. So I just think that that is a way that you can desensitize it.
I agree. Asking people, how are you, and really meaning it, and actually listening to when they tell you.
Right. Because a lot of times you are the first line of defense. I know we want to pass it over to a mental health counselor, but if you've already built that rapport with that person, you are doing a good deed. You are doing what needs to be done to try to help them through. And they're probably going to trust you more because you asked those questions and that you were there and you decided to take the time to discuss some things with them.
I totally agree. And that's actually something we learned in the mental health first aid training. If you are that first person to intervene, then I think it's a good idea, a good practice to kind of follow up with that person. Insert yourself in a way that reinforces that you care. Because, like Tamara just said, oftentimes the first person to step in and really listen is who the trust and rapport is established with. So if you can kind of facilitate their journey to connecting them with the mental health experts, but not just, put past the baton to the next person and then the race is over, but just, check in with that person. If you really feel that you intervened, just let that person know that you're thinking about them and that they matter. I think that's the human condition. We all want to feel loved and cared for. So I think it's just about being a good global citizen and kind of being more selfless. And that's something that I'm going to challenge myself to do, to really greet people more. And when I ask, hey, how are you doing? Actually listen. So the next part we have, I've noticed, I think in my training, that we don't use certain terminology that was once popular. And the previous phrase that was so attached to the topic of suicide was when somebody took their own life, they committed suicide. However, I'm starting to see more and more of the wording being changed. Instead of saying committed suicide, is that person died by suicide? And I'm going to ask Chandra and Tamara, why do you think something as simple as wording changed from someone committed suicide to someone died by suicide? Why does the wording matter in this case? What's your opinion on this, ladies?
I would say it may be to, again, work on the desensitizing. Um, Committed doesn't necessarily seem like that's the end. Or if you are more blunt and say died by suicide, that puts more meaning to it. Um, and if you commit it, it doesn't mean that that person may not have died from the suicide and they're still living with that, but now they have that stigma on them that they made these attempts but didn't succeed. So they may try to continue to do it later on. So the wording, I think, is something that matters, that it again helps bring more dominance to what's happening, as far as, someone, like I said, that may have attempted suicide but did not succeed. Now you have that label of I committed suicide, but I didn't finish. And people that hear that may look at it in a different light.
That's an interesting point that you brought up. We, unfortunately, I'm sure we all know someone who has died by suicide, whether they were close to us or a mutual person. But there are people who have attempted and have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing what their testimonies are like. I know there's an individual who was on the Golden Gate Bridge, I believe, in San Francisco. And that is a very popular bridge for people wanting to end their life. It's a very high bridge, and oftentimes the outcome is fatal. However, there was one individual, he survived. I believe his name is Kevin. I could be wrong, but when we do post this video to the website, I will be sure to include the article and the video of his story. And it was the thoughts going through his head once he had jumped off. He instantly regretted it. So the people who have attempted but did not complete it, that's, I guess, another great reason for why wording matters. And then also a huge importance to why wording matters. The word commit has such a negative connotation. I know growing up in the South, you hear commit, and what follows next? A sin. You're committing a sin. So it's such a negative connotation that's associated with the word commit. And so the politically correct way that the world has kind of adopted is when someone successfully completes suicide, it's died by suicide. Chandra,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and so the word death and died, I just wanted to add 2 cents, like basically it's final. So that is why I'm thinking that the change goes into it as well, because like you said, what commitment is and commit, and that's the end of all, and there's nothing else after that. So I guess they wanted to raise awareness that this is it, it's final, nothing else is after that. So that's why I think they have changed over to it.
Okay, really, really great insight. And so this brings us to two of our last points. The loved ones left behind. How do we support them? It's very unfortunate when suicide hits home and it becomes your reality. And a lot of times the individuals in that moment who are ending their lives, there's probably so much turmoil going on in their own mind. They're not intentionally trying to, cause harm to those that are leaving behind. And a lot of times they don't really necessarily want their life to end. They want the problems to end. But when someone is successful at dying by suicide and they leave a family, there's a quote that I found: loved ones survived by suicide. These are people that are bereaved by suicide. They feel themselves stigmatized and isolated. If you know someone who has died by suicide, it is normal to feel grief, anger, guilt, and betrayal. Grief is a normal process, but if you're struggling, consider seeking professional help, bereavement counseling, or joining a support group. I know oftentimes when someone makes the decision to take their life, it has a ripple effect. And ripple effects can become generational trauma for those that you leave behind. So if this is you and you're listening, please connect yourself with a mental health expert, because there are lasting effects of the people, the loved ones that are left behind. And we want to make sure that you're being taken care of too. And so our last point, we're going to try to leave this on a positive note today. But going back to the beginning of the webinar, we really hit on that demographic of college age students, the 18 to 24, our young people. I believe they're categorized as Gen Z. How do we let them know that their lives matter? Their very existence on this earth matters. If they have breath in their lungs, they have a purpose. How do we spread that message to our young people?
I like to allow them to be more aware that today is today, and we should try to give us a chance for tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow may bring, but we try to persuade them and influence them on the fact that today is this day and time, that we do have tomorrow to try to make those changes. And with death, if you choose that, you cannot make that change. That at least there's some possibility of hope of getting out of that situation or maneuvering through that situation for a brighter day. So we want to promote a lot of hope for that person, provide them with information, desensitize the suicide and mental health, that there's help, there's support out there, there's resources that we can provide. The college has provided mental health counselors for every campus. There's a mental health counselor. Let them know that there is help out there.
The idea of hope, I really like that. Chandra?
Okay, I would like to say that kindness goes a long way, and that there's always somebody out there that needs help, and your journey may help somebody else. So if you're there, you can help somebody else not have to go through what you went through, or help somebody move higher in the areas they're trying to get to because you've experienced that. And then you could learn from somebody else too. So being kind goes a long way on both ends, for you and for others.
I really liked both of those answers. The promise of hope, like Tamara suggested, and then Chandra with kindness. Kindness is contagious. I feel like those two methods are the best way to let our children know, our young adults, our middle-aged adults, everyone in our life, to know that they too matter. There is a chance for hope and an opportunity for you to spread kindness today. Thank you two ladies for being here and offering your wisdom. And I hope you got something out of today's event. I'll turn it over to you, Jana.
Thank you. This was a wonderful discussion, dialogue about what we're seeing here amongst our students at HCC and how we can help them and help, hopefully, with the prevention of more suicide awareness programs, and to help all those around us and be the spot of kindness and hope in someone's life. I want to thank all of you for coming today and being part of this dialogue. We appreciate it very much. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and please feel free to use this video for anything that you need.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Miss Tamara, you are a rock star with little to very no notice. We appreciate your willingness to participate, and just, I think if you weren't prepped, you would have still done a great job.
All right. Thank you. And invite me to anything I can try to provide as much knowledge as possible. I do like a little bit more notice, but it's okay.
And also, thank you, Chandra. We really appreciate you and what you do for our veterans.
You're welcome.
All right, ladies. Thank you, Miss Sheila, Brandy, and April for tuning in. And that is a wrap.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure always. Have a good day, Jana.
You too.
All righty.